Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's the middle of November, which means that we have a perfect idea of what the identity of every single team in the NBA is going to be. At this point, it might as well already be over. We already know who the players are and what these teams are going to end up being. So let's make some lofty assumptions about all of them. And I probably should add, this is not my original idea. I read a wonderful piece on The Ringer this morning. I've been chewing on it all day. I've been digesting it, and let's see what comes out. Are super teams in the NBA dead? My initial reaction would be, if it's not already happened, then I think we're definitely trending that way. The super team bubble, in the same way that the podcast bubble is assuredly going to burst. Well, the podcast bubble I thought was going to burst, and it just never did, and everyone is still starting a new podcast like every single week. But anyways, this also brings up the age-old question, the philosophical nightmare that is what you believe constitutes a super team in the NBA, because everybody's going to have varying definitions. Just for all intents and purposes, so I can set like a standard and a precedent for what I'm going to be using for the rest of the video, let's kind of cover what I think that means super quick. Let's say you're in field goal range, you're at like the 31-yard line, and you're trying to get in the red zone, maybe get to first and goal or something, right? You trade for a guy who can get you that extra 15 yards and better ensure that you're going to be able to get in the end zone. So by the time you make this trade, your odds are going to skyrocket, and people will be able to use that trade as an indicator that, okay, this team who already has a pre-existing top 10 player, maybe top 15 players on the team, they add another guy into the mix to hopefully get them in the end zone. Does this make sense? Are we all on the same page? So let's go down the list of teams that like could be like a fringe super team, but like definitely aren't. I just want to cover all my bases. I don't think any of the teams I'm about to mention, you're going to be like, they're definitely a super team, because I don't really think any of them are. The Atlanta Hawks traded for DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray, even though he was an all-star, a walking almost triple-double last year for the Spurs, he's been insane defensively this year for Atlanta. I don't really think anybody's going to argue that Atlanta trading for him made them a super team, so I don't think that they need to rest their laurels on the fact that, you know, hey, we traded for DeJounte Murray, so it's championship or bust this year. I don't really think that counts. I think the two teams, rather, that are interesting to me are like, do you consider Minnesota a super team? Probably not. Right? If this was a few years down the line, we had a more evolved version of Anthony Edwards, and he's already fantastic. But if we had an even like 3 years, 4 or 5 years of NBA experience, Anthony Edwards, with a guy like Rudy Gobert, with a guy like Karl-Anthony Towns, with a guy like D'Angelo Russell. But we also kind of already see how this is going with Minnesota. Like, it's fine sometimes, but like more, it's not. They're not a super team. The Cavs, that one's interesting because you trade for Donovan Mitchell, a consensus top 15 guy, right? You have Darius Garland, who's a consensus top 10 point guard. You have Jared Allen, who's a consensus top 10 rim protector. You have Kevin Love, who, since the Cavs decided that they're going to be good again, Kevin Love has also decided that he's going to stop bitching and pouting and moaning and fucking sliding down the wall. And he's like a top 10 sixth man of the year candidate, I guess. But still, no, that's not a super team. It's not. Okay, what about Golden State? Well, Golden State just won the finals. They haven't been a super team in 4 years. They're not. All the guys that they have, they drafted. Right? Like, those are their dudes, except for like Iguodala, not the fringe guys, the role players. Well, actually, that does matter. But like, Steph, drafted. Clay, drafted. Jordan Poole, drafted. Draymond Green, drafted. James Wiseman, drafted. Well, who did they play in the finals last year? Boston, really good team. Homegrown. Jason Tatum, drafted. Jaylen Brown, drafted. Marcus Smart, drafted. So who are the actual super teams in the league, and are they playing good basketball right now? I think a lot of people, if we rewind the clock 2 years, would call the Lakers a super team because you have Anthony Davis, a pre-existing top 10 player at the time that he was traded, and LeBron James, who at the time of the trade was considered the best player in the world. What did they do? They won a championship, and then I don't need to do an oral history on Rob Pelinka being a shithead GM and LeBron coercing him into making horrible financial and basketball decisions. But that shit's not going well, right? Then we go to the complete opposite coast in Brooklyn, and I, again, don't need to give an oral history on how everything there has played out, but I believe most people, when the clean sweep happened, right, as it were, and they got Kyrie, they got KD, they got DeAndre Jordan, which is really funny to me. I think it was at the time, if you had objectivity and the presence of mind to call it what it was with DeAndre Jordan at that point in his career. But it's even funnier now to look back and just DeAndre Jordan was just pushed into the clean sweep. It's like that he wasn't part of that. He was, but he was not part of that. That is not going well. Another thing that somebody pointed out in the Motown Noah Discord, which I will throw a link to in the description here. You guys have been fantastic in there. Thank you very much for joining. It's been very fun hanging out with all of you guys. But somebody did point out actually this morning, they were like, hey, genuine question. Would you guys still make the Kawhi move? Would you still do like the PG trade and get Kawhi in, knowing what we know now? Is that something that you still would have done? Because I think that at this point, are you calling Phoenix a super team? No. God, no. What am I talking about? God, no. You know what? That was a little bit of a sidetrack. I just went for like 2.5 minutes on the Suns. I'm going to cut all of that, and we're going to move back on to the Clippers. I would. That is something that I still would have done. If I was Steve Ballmer and I had the ambitions that he has in transforming what it means to be a part of the Clippers franchise and what their status is, not just in the city of Los Angeles, but across not even just the country, but the entire world, right? You're trying to rebrand this whole thing. That's why they're getting the new stadium in Inglewood. But I would. And John Wall, I think, came out recently and was like, I've been trying to tell the guys, like, enjoy this shit because it can get taken away from you really fast. And because of that, I mean, the Clippers, like, these dudes are online. They know what people are saying and what the expectations are. He's saying that it's like impossible for anybody to have fun because the expectations are so prevalently there, right? And then you have Kawhi, who there are really two sides to the argument. Either he's not going to be able to get his body back into the physical shape that he was in before, right? The physical prime that he had pre-injury. But you also have the people who are like, the dude hasn't played in like fucking 100 years. Like, give him a little bit of time. That's why I made the joke at the beginning about like, oh, it's the middle of November. That means we know everything about all of these teams, because that's sometimes how people act. And like the reality is, if it's like pre-January, that's a little late. By January, the middle of January, I think we kind of know. At that point, the NBA season is in full swing. Teams have played, 35, 40 games. So I think at that point, we kind of know. But until the middle of like December, we'll use December 15th, right? As a good indicator of like, I think we kind of see where this team is trending. That means I give the Clippers like another month to like figure it out and like what are the vibes? Like, is Kawhi okay? What's going on there? But even then, we're talking about a team who I believe people would still. I don't know. Does that? I'm thinking about this in real time. Does the label even exist anymore? Think about Milwaukee. By the way, I haven't mentioned Milwaukee. Giannis drafted. Chris Middleton not drafted, but they traded for him so early in his career that he wasn't Chris Middleton when they unless you ask fucking Pistons fans. Then they're going to be like, I always said it. I always said we shouldn't have traded Chris Middleton. You probably didn't at the time, but I digress. And like, yeah, they traded for Drew, but when the Bucks won, were people clamoring that a super team won? I'm really trying to think right now. What team in the NBA would have to win in order for people to use the argument, like the Twitter argument where people are just being salty and fucking annoying? Like, fraudulent ring. This is a super team. Like, it doesn't count. Super teams are so bad for the league. I really can't think of a single team in this league that if they took off and went on a 20-game win streak, people would chalk it up to them being a super team and that Adam Silver needs to step in and do something about this. And then just say, here's a take, too. Here's another take, just since we're on the topic of super teams. There is not an easier way for somebody to tell on themselves than when a major trade in the NBA happens. And without fail, you go to the replies, and the fucking guys who are like, so the NBA will let this happen, but Chris Paul going to the Lakers couldn't happen? Shut the fuck up. Sealed and signed. She's not my lover like Billie Jean, but the kid is mine. You know absolutely goddamn nothing. Anyways, I'm breaking a sweat getting all mad about this. What team would have to win? I don't know that we would slap that label on anybody, because even the teams that we're talking about, the Nets, they fucking suck. The Lakers, they suck. The Clippers, they're not that great right now. I really can't think, like, are we past the point of teams amalgamating as many stars as they possibly can because the talent pool is so diverse at this point, and the distribution of wealth has been accommodating to enough teams that they got a little something. It feels like everybody could be a player for, like, the DeJounte Murrays of the world, of which there are a few of them, where it's like he's a high-level guy, but he's an expendable high-level guy. You know what I mean? I hate this video idea because I'm thinking about so much in real time. that I'm missing something. And when I'm editing this video, I'm going to think of something. And when this is uploaded and you guys are leaving comments, I'm going to be like, that's a great point. That's a great point. Why didn't I think of that? That's a great point. Ooh, Philly fans are pissed right now that I forgot about them. But that's not a... It's also really funny to me that I mentioned the Nets, and just because I just brought up Philly, I'm just now realizing I did not mention Ben Simmons for Brooklyn, which sucks because I do like him. I know it's really easy to like get off Ben Simmons jokes, and I'll laugh at them, but I like him as a dude. I think he's a good guy. But Philadelphia, even then, what do you want me to say? Well, I don't know. Are they the closest thing? Because if there is anybody in the world who refuses to let the super team dream die, I do believe that it would be Daryl Morey. Right? But Joel Embiid is drafted. That's homegrown talent. Tobias Harris, not drafted. James Harden, well, okay. Fun little loophole here, though. Well, wait, no. Daryl Morey didn't draft him. I was thinking he got drafted by Houston. No. That motherfucker was drafted by Oklahoma City. But, like, Daryl Morey was the one who realized that potential. You know what I mean? When Oklahoma City puts out that stealth word that, like, hey, we're not going to fucking pay this guy. And Daryl Morey's like, do you want, like, Jeremy Lamb and, like, a draft pick, whatever the haul ended up being, right? Because somebody would have paid more. They just didn't know. Nobody knew that that's all that it took to get him, right? So this is a really roundabout way. Like, no, obviously, the technicality is that, no, obviously, James Harden is not homegrown talent. I'm just playing devil's advocate. It's like, well, that is Daryl Morey's guy. And since they're always destined to fucking fall in love and be together forever and ride off into the sunset like a fairy tale, in some funny way, it's like, no, that's Philly's guy. Like, that's always been Philly's guy. But no, but Philly's not a super team. And that's a team that, even though we expect a lot out of them, we also expect that at some point, and I said this, I think I made a video about this. I don't remember where the fuck I said this. But it's like, at some point, Embiid's going to have just this insane nagging injury. And God forbid, and I say this all the time whenever I talk about this, I would never wish injury on anybody. But when he's going to have some weird thumb ligament that keeps him out for like every other game for like 3 consecutive weeks. And it's just going to be, and that's when Jokic does his like NBA. And I don't need to mention the Nuggets, right? No, I don't need to mention the Nuggets. That's not a super team. All the dudes that are good there, they drafted. This is blowing my mind. Our team's just getting really good at drafting. Is that what it is? Maybe that's the take. Is there's a lot more because there's so much more data that's available and so much more everything's being filmed all the time. So much more surveillance, people getting to see more tape. Maybe that's what it is. Also, and the funniest thing about this, and this just goes into the drafting thing, I think that you'd be surprised how many scouts teams have. You probably think, what do they have, like, I don't know, 10 scouts? They have like 100. There's more scouts every single year going to the most like desolate places on the planet just to watch a dude like maybe put up 25 and then go, I don't think he's ready for the NBA. I don't think he's cut out for this. Like he'll go, somebody will catch a flight to like Argentina just to have to take a ferry to fucking Antarctica to watch this guy play in like an empty gym and then just come away and like call Sam Presti and be like, no, I actually don't think this guy's for us. Where do you want me to go next? Like, did you guys see Hustle? That's like real. The Adam Sandler movie, that, like the shit that was depicted in that movie about like the life of an NBA scout. Yeah, we're going off the rails in this one. Let's circle it back. What am I forgetting? I don't think there's any super teams, period, in the league right now. And if they are, no, because they're just bad teams. Can you only be a super team if you're good? I'll end it with that. There's a prompt for you guys in the comments. Can you only be a super team in the NBA if you are good? Because if you're bad, are you just a bad team?